Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Alpha1 Armory. So continuing on our conversation when we were talking about pistol caliber carbines and things like that, I mentioned that being able to shoot, for instance, 9mm out of an AR-15 platform, a pistol caliber carbine, is a cheaper way to do some training. And so I wanted to kind of stay on that topic and give you my thoughts on a kit that I purchased several years ago. It was out of sight, out of mind. I had it in a box, completely forgot I owned it. And then I found it the other day. I'm like, hey, I haven't really tested this or given anybody my thoughts on this. And that's the CMMG 22 long rifle exchange kit for an AR-15. So yes, 9mm is cheaper than 5.56, but what's even cheaper than 9mm is 22 long rifle. So I'm like, hey, a great opportunity to kind of talk about this, see if there's any value in this and just give you my thoughts. So I went out to the range and I basically did a couple hours of testing of this kit. I was really surprised by it. It ran perfectly. It was a lot of fun. And so I just want to see if it adds any value to any of you out there, especially given how expensive ammo is these days. And there's also some issues with availability in some areas. And 22 long rifle, I haven't seen there being too many issues with it these days. Back when we had the ammo crunch a few years ago, 22 long rifle was probably the hardest thing to get. And then these days, it's actually, I haven't seen any issues with finding 22 LR anywhere. I've had more issues with other types of ammo than with 22 long rifle. So as things stand, I think 22 long rifle is a great opportunity to save some money. It's about 1/10 of the cost of 5.56 223. You can get 22 long rifle for anywhere between 5 and 7 cents a round, as opposed to about 50 cents a round for good quality brass cased 5.56. So in any case, what does the kit entail? So it's basically comes with 3 25 round magazines. These are just plastic polymer reinforced magazines, as you can see here, and just your little bolt that you exchange with your existing 5.56 223 bolt. The process to exchange it is super easy. It takes seconds, not even a minute, to just take out the existing bolt and introduce this bolt. That's all it is. Really, really simple to do, and you are good to go. So I ran this in my go-to rifle, my Bravo Company 10.5-inch barrel with a pin and welded suppressor on it, and the thing just ran like a top. No issues with feeding, extracting, nothing. And so I was actually very surprised at how well it ran. Now, I did want to give it the best opportunity to run well, so I was using some high velocity 40 grain Aguila ammunition, and it was perfect. So I don't know if had I run something that was maybe subsonics or lower weight, maybe 30 grains or whatever, that it wouldn't have cycled as well. But that's what I have, that's what I use. I like the full power stuff because if I want to use it for plinking or even for hunting, small game or varmints or whatever it is, I want to be able to use that ammo for both of those things. So I usually stick with the 40 grain high velocity stuff in general. So again, if you want to try it with something else, go ahead, but this stuff worked perfectly fine. I had zero issues. I was doing mag dumps. It's so fun because it's so quiet, especially suppressed, and then there's no recoil whatsoever. And so it just makes it really fun to shoot. Almost feels like you're shooting a pellet gun. And so I just had a great time with it. So just a couple things to understand as far as the limitations for this kit. Like I said, these are plastic magazines. The only thing that stood out to me is these are, you can see a seam here. So it's obviously two parts that are being joined together by some rivets, as well as I'm guessing there's probably also some maybe glue or something there. So this is probably the weak link of the system, in that if you're doing some emergency reloads, you're stripping the mag, you're tossing whatever, I don't know how long they would stand up to that kind of abuse, especially if you're doing it in cement, concrete, asphalt, that kind of stuff. But again, just be aware of that. I was doing it in the soft sand and dirt of my range, and they held up just fine. Again, a couple hours worth of training. But again, I suspect that you probably would end up breaking those at some point. I don't know how much that would take or how long that would take, but I'm pretty sure that I could end up breaking these at some point. Now, and that takes me to what is the actual role of a kit like this. And I think this is great to do all of your manipulations and still do some live fire. So if you're going to be doing your emergency reloads, speed reloads, your TAC reloads, if you're going to do type 1, type 2, type 3 malfunctions, and everything inside of 25 yards, let's say, first round on target, a lot of these things, manipulations and weapons handling, is great because you get to do it at a tenth of the price. Now, understand the limitations that, this is not the 22 long rifle is not an analog for 5.56, so it's not going to teach you anything about the external ballistics or the effective range of your rifle, right? So understand that that's not what this is for. And then on top of that, given the fact that it has almost no recoil, this is also not a good tool to learn to manage recoil, all right? So it's just about manipulations, weapons handling, all that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, I think it's a great tool to introduce people to shooting an AR-15. So whether it's smaller children or just someone that's doing it for the first time, to not get intimidated by some of the recoil or the noise and that kind of stuff. I think this is a perfect kind of introductory thing that you can use for folks like that. The other thing to know that I thought this didn't have a bolt hold open feature because when I removed the magazine and I looked over after I was shot an entire magazine, I looked over at the ejection port. I'm like, oh, the bolt's all the way in. It doesn't hold open. But the reality is that this entire bolt does not go all the way back into the buffer tube like a standard bolt carrier would. The only thing that cycles is this half of the bolt. Okay, so what happens is then this is what holds open. The magazine itself is what holds the bolt open, and then as soon as you remove the magazine, it shuts down. So it does have bolt open feature, but it just doesn't work the same way as your traditional bolt. Just be aware of that. As soon as you remove the magazine, it's gonna shut, and your bolt lock is not gonna work the same way with this type of bolt as it would with a traditional bolt. So again, those are just some of the limitations, not really limitations, just understand how it works. But overall, had a great time. I think there's definitely a role for this, for training, for plinking, for to introduce people to shooting an AR-15 and just saving some money. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you next time.